Welcome to Celtic State of Mind. I'm John Dykes, and today I'm joined by Kevin Graham. This is the matchday preview show, the Axon Bulletin. Kevin, how are you?
Not too bad, Paul. It's a breakfast show, isn't it?
It's a breakfast show, it certainly is. Nice and early.
If any of the listeners or the viewers can tell us the actual time, it would probably be helpful with these. We're new into British winter time or whatever it is. It's very confusing, especially with me and you with small kids who didn't understand that you get an extra hour in your bed.
No, well, you just don't get it, do you?
No.
We're in this morning, we're in early because you were in on Thursday watching the AC Milan game. First of all, Kevin, you've had a few days to digest everything that's happened in the last week or so. What was your view on some of the positives from Thursday night?
As I says on Thursday night straight after it, I didn't know whether I had got what I wanted out the game. And now after 48 hours or however long it is, I still don't think I got enough out the game to actually say that there's signs of that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I think the game threw up more questions than actually answers, and it's a tough game today going to Aberdeen. These early kick-offs are usually like dull, gloopy, hungover affairs, and they sometimes take a wee while to get going. I'm not holding out too much hope for a performance. I'm being really negative here, but you just have a look at it. The weather's if the weather's the same up in the northeast as what it is down here just now. It's windy, it's showery, it's it's a very autumn day, and it's a quick turnaround for AC Milan to today. It was an interesting thing. As I was travelling here, I was actually thinking, and somebody might be able to tell me this, did the Celtic team now still stay overnight because of the COVID restrictions? Did they still travel to Aberdeen? Well, would they been in Aberdeen last night staying, or will they be travelling up today? Because I know under normal times that their routine was they would stay close to the away trip the night before. But I know for example when they were going to Perth the other couple of weeks there, they usually stay in Dunblane, and they never done it because of the restrictions. So I'm wondering if the football bubble has seen their pre-match routine absolutely change, because Lenny was saying quite a strange couple of things in his press conference. He's saying that the players didn't deserve the amount of changes that are happening. They didn't deserve the amount of abuse that they're getting. They didn't deserve to be questioned after winning 11 trophies in a row. Obviously, it's just Neil trying to take the pressure off, but he was also going on about no fans and a change in their 5-year routine that they've had to come up with. And we can mock it all we want, but these guys are professional athletes who are robots at times, who everything must be perfect. We know, for example, when the Celtic teams go to these away days, well, they're not away days, but go to the hotels before the games, the rooms had to be set up the exact same way in every single hotel. So when they walked into their private dining area, they didn't have to think where the chicken was. They didn't have to think where the steak was. They didn't have to think where the pasta was, because it was always in the same area. That was Brendan Rodgers that brought that in. Yeah. And so all they were thinking about was their game. They didn't need to think about anything else. Now, if that's been absolutely drilled into you for 5 seasons and it changes, then you hear it all the time with football players going like that. It's all these wee small things that matter. It's all trying to get that extra
part of the preparation.
It's part of the preparation. Yeah. Getting a wee percentage here and there, so you're on top of your game. And it's maybe a wild excuse. It's maybe I'm looking for wild excuses due to our drop in form, but it could well be. It's something that we don't factor in.
No, we don't, because it seems absurd. But, it's one of many different preparation aspects that, again, as you say, you're looking for tiny percentages. And I think when Rodgers came in, and we've spoken about it a hell of a lot. When he came in, there was a whole different culture around about the club and the preparation. Some of the things were big, like how they travel to away European ties, Kevin. Some of them were as small as what you've just suggested there. So the familiarity, wherever they are, depending where they're playing, away from home or at home, the preparation's the same. So on the one hand, I completely get that, because it's part of behaving like what you would describe as an elite club. But on the other hand, there must be people watching this going, wow, really? Does that matter that much? Because the performances that we've seen this season, Kevin, going back to a point you've made there, and again, I'm just playing devil's advocate with Lenny coming out and saying that the abuse. I mean, when we're on a Celtic State of Mind, it's no abuse that we're firing out. It's criticism, and it's balanced criticism. I don't think there's any abuse coming out, certainly from our channel, but they've got to expect it when the performances are so poor.
They do, and it is part and parcel of being a professional football player in the modern age, unfortunately enough. There's something, though. There's no fans in the stadium, and I'm going to go back to this. There's no fans in the stadium, and again, I'm not using this as an excuse, even though I will stick to my guns with what I said the other night. There is, if there was 60,000 Celtic fans in that stadium, we're getting a 2-each draw. I still fully believe that. But there's no fans in the stadium, so the only comments the players are seeing and hearing are for social media. So the only ones that they're going to get are the abusive ones. It's not as if they're in the stadium and when they're walking off and the travelling fans and that, the home fans are applauding them, giving them encouragement. All they're seeing is constant negativity, and that must play on them as well. But as you say, criticism's part and parcel of the game, but I do think it's a difficult mindset for any human being if all you're going to be reading is negative comments.
100%. Now, it's a great point I'm glad you brought up, because you could take, for example, the Celtic State of Mind Bulletin. So we go out every single day. We go out multiple times on match days, sometimes 5 times, up to 5 times, Kevin. We're putting that out, and some of the level of abuse you get, not just from Rangers fans, because they do tune in on match day, they tune into Celtic podcast, but from fans of our own club. Yes, it could be quite disheartening, but there's obviously a way of dealing with that on this level. Times that by 1,000,000 in terms of the kind of criticism that is maybe levied at an elite football club, and that's what Celtic are, or certainly aspiring to be at. And I said earlier in this season, in reference to Lee Griffiths, Kevin, I said, get Tommy Rogic to retire from international football and get Lee Griffiths to retire for social media. I think under the circumstances, removing footballers from those platforms on the whole wouldn't be a bad thing. Now, I take on board the Marcus Rashford situation, which is completely different, because he's using the platform for good, and it's absolutely tremendous what he's doing. But I do think, and I'm going back to people maybe that I know that are in the game, who they do get concerned with what's getting said online. It can make or break their day, night, weekend, if they're aware of it. And I just think, maybe from the club's perspective, it would be a good idea in this season, under these circumstances, to try and, shut that noise out completely by not being there.
It's difficult for the players, because some of them will have sponsorship deals, which means that they've got to be on social media for certain things. It's just one. Does it make the younger generation, and I'm talking as a middle-aged guy here, does it make the younger generation feel closer to the players, that the fact that they're on these social media sites?
Normally I would say, yeah.
I would think so, because there is a gap between, it's not like the 1980s when me and you could go to Celtic Park and the players were there, and the 60s and 70s where the guys would still stay in their local villages now.
They'd walk from Celtic Park to Barrowfield. You could see them walking up the road.
So that's different, and I understand social media can make the club and the fans feel closer together, just because that's the world that we're in now. But as you say, Marcus Rashford uses it for good. I'm sure if you went through back through Marcus Rashford's Twitter feed, you would see some abuse from Man United fans if he's had a bad performance in that. It's a difficult thing, and it could be the players are going through a bad period and they haven't got that unwavering support in the stands. They haven't got... Today, for example, going to Aberdeen, there'd be 1,800 Celtic fans up there willing to sing and fight for them, to give them that reception.
Absolutely.
And if they're going up there this morning on their phones, they might all see, aye, you're rubbish, you were terrible, you're this, you're that, But that, as you say, that's up to the management. And
it's going back to your point, your very specific point about these tiny margins, Kevin, and I think one of the big margins is mindset, your state of mind. And if, for example, you're reading abuse, it takes a very special individual not to be affected by that, especially if you're a sports person about to prepare for a game. And I think under these circumstances, people might think this is too difficult. It's not. The club could basically take ownership of players' Twitter accounts, just under these circumstances. And by the way, when you see those generic tweets after a defeat or a win, what is it, we go again and all this nonsense, good performance, disappointed with the result, all that rubbish. It's almost as if they're generic tweets anyway.
Did you see the Victor Achibe one for 4 years ago when he was with Stoke? He's obviously copied and pasted a message for his phone, but he's forgot to take out the first line.
Right.
And the first line says, please can you tweet something like this? So he's copied that and copied the message and go, bad result today, lads, but we go again.
Brilliant.
So obviously it's somebody for the club's media team sent him.
We just need to employ whoever looks after Moussa Dembele's Twitter account, right? Employ them to just look after all the Celtic Twitter accounts. You mean to say it's no Moussa? You mean to say that he's not sitting there tweeting about us, no? No chance. No chance. Now, we're getting loads of great comments coming in via Twitter, Facebook and YouTube. So for anyone who is watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. And again, before we move on, we've mentioned about, the state of mind and all that kind of stuff. Kev, I noticed that you're wearing some decent clobber on there today. This actually was sent in from the good people at Max Kolbe. So tell us a wee bit about that design you've got on you.
Max Kolbe, this design is called Peaceful Hooligan, and Max Kolbe was set up by a recovering gambling alcoholic and cocaine addict who went into recovery, and he wants to give something back to that community, the recovery community, and he wants to make the website a safe space for anybody that's got their own addictions or gone through mental health problems to go in and get help, to say that there's always people there for them. So you can buy these on the store, and all the proceeds, once all the costs and that are covered, go to recovery groups all over Scotland to help them carry on the fantastic work that they do.
It's great to hear. I mean, as I say, we're open to collaborations with people, Kevin, and people know, if they've been listening into a Celtic State of Mind for about 3.5 years, that we're all about culture, we're about art, we're about film, everything that you can bring into the melting pot, because football's much wider than what happens on the pitch. As Big Andy Milne says, it's more than 90 minutes, isn't it? And that's what a Celtic State of Mind taps into. So anybody else who's got initiatives, and certainly anybody who wants to send us some clobber, no problem at all, because it's a cracking t-shirt and there's a few out there, so you'll be wearing them over the next couple of days while you're on a Celtic State of Mind.
If you check out the website, it's maxkolbe.co.uk. And I think it's a fantastic design. I think the guy's got it spot on with the range of clothing that he's got. It appeals to me, and but it's a great thing that he's doing. He wants to give something back to the people that helped him, and he knows that there's other people out there that need our help, everybody's help, and it's the same here at A State of Mind. If you're in bother and having some problems yourself, just message us. We can put you in touch with great people who are going to be able to help you through any difficulties that you're going through in your life at this precise moment in time.
We do have some
far bigger than losing games of football.
Yeah, you're right, and we do have some great contacts, Kevin, as you say. So never ever hesitate to get in touch with us, and we can speak to you in the first instance, and we can put you in touch with some great contacts that were built up over the last few years as well, Kevin. Now, some interesting things came out through Neil Lennon's press conferences since obviously the 2 defeats to Rangers and AC Milan. One of them that I want to highlight is the Shane Duffy comments, because Shane Duffy did come in for criticism, directly from myself, Kevin, because for me, 2 disappointing performances at the heart of Celtic's defence. We're leaking too many goals that we should be preventing. You come up against an AC Milan side who we know their quality, but when you look at the actual goals that were scored, Kevin, particularly the first 2, you're thinking to yourself, our performance isn't that bad, but their goals are very, very cheap. And the one at the very end of the game, I was very critical of Shane Duffy because I just felt it was bad positioning. He was slow to react. The guy, he made the boys' job easy, and the game looked at 3-1 like a bit of a pasting at home, but as you say, we were actually chasing a 2-2 in the last 10-15 minutes. So when we're looking at Shane Duffy, Neil Lennon comes out and 2 things spring to my mind. The first one is he hasn't played competitive football for a number of months before he comes to Celtic, and then he's played 14 games in quick succession. I totally take that on board because I kind of mentioned the fact that he is playing a lot of games. You would think that might benefit him, but again, obviously he's getting no rest because in the international breaks he's the captain of his country. Then the other one was, I think I tweeted out that my big concern about Shane Duffy, it may actually be a fitness issue, and of course that's been confirmed as well. Dental issues coming up to the Rangers game, probably shouldn't have played. So I mean, for you, does that kind of make up for the fact that there's been 2 bad performances? There's nothing we can do when we don't have the backup. It's not as though we could play someone in his place. We're hoping that this afternoon against Aberdeen we're going to see the real Shane Duffy.
I would hope so. I think the problem that we've got with Shane, and I was a bit harsh on him on Thursday night, I know I was.
I think you compared him to Mastorovic, Kev.
I did, but then I did send out a wee jokey tweet when Joe Blog City, who runs the Celtic, is it the Wiki?
The Wiki, yeah.
Helps the Wiki. I did say I was a bit hard on Daniel Mastorovic there, but that was a joke. It was a joke. Shane Duffy, when he came to us, was built up as the love child of Bobo Baldi, Hercules and Maldini. The fact that we chased him for so long, he was built up into a colossus player. No, a guy that hadn't played for quite a few months, and all of a sudden he's hit a massive run of games, and he's now looking like he's struggling. He's looking leggy. He's looking under pressure. He's looking like, I don't really know what's going on here. Now, there could be a couple of reasons for this. One reason, as you say, he's injured. He's playing through the pain barrier for us. Another reason is lack of cohesion with his partners at the back. He's still learning to play alongside them. Lack of maybe set up for the coaching staff. Or it could just be that the games are catching up with him. And the fact is, we haven't got anybody else. That he's maybe just got to take a step back. He's maybe putting too much pressure on himself.
If Julien was fit right now, Duffy would be dropped.
Definitely.
He'd be on the bench at Pittodrie today.
Definitely.
But he's one of only 3 centre-halves that we have at the moment at the club who could play. So he will start. I'm going to ask you about the shape of the team and your personnel, Kevin. But Duffy, for me, and actually Scott Brown, are 2 people I would like to discuss before we look at the team lineups.
We've got to. We spoke about state of mind. Duffy's got to shut everything out that's been says me and loads of other people over the last few days. He came out after the Rangers game with somebody called it birthday cared pish, and they just go in the park and do it, which is fine. That's what football players do now. That they use their social media for that, and as we've already spoke about, it can be for good or bad. But he's got to have shut everything out, and the coaching staff have got to have took him aside or worked on something over the last couple of days to get his mindset back 100%. There's a lot of pressure on him. He's made it quite clear that he's a Celtic fan. He understands what it means to me and you sitting here and everybody else watching at home. So he just needs to relax and play his game. And Celtic, the coaching staff maybe need to set the team up to allow him to play his game, allow him to feel comfortable in a back line, and allow him to settle. He's still settling in. Let's not, even though he's got all the experience, He's a vastly experienced player. He's still settling into the biggest football club that he's ever going to play for. And that is a massive... I would struggle to think if I could get my head around that.
Well, again, I just think today is pivotal in so many ways, Kevin. And one of the reasons I brought Duffy up is I just think, I'm not going to say it's his last chance, but today's the day for a performance from Duffy, absolutely no doubt about it. Before we start looking at the team lines, I want to also speak about Scott Brown. And you're going into a game at Pittodrie, and, ordinarily you couldn't think of going into a battle like that without Scott Brown if you go over the last several seasons. I think when I'm looking at the team that I'm picking here, and I'm a massive Brown fan, Kevin, I've written various articles on how pivotal he is and how important he is to Celtic's success, not only previously but this season, of all seasons. Is he droppable for a game like this after the last two performances?
He is droppable for a game like this, but I don't think he will be. But I understand, and I says it sitting here myself, understand that the team looked far better going forward on Thursday night after he left the pitch. But this is completely different circumstances today. We're going to Pittodrie, a tough venue, playing against a team who have won 6 out of their last 8 games, who probably should have bet Dundee United to make it 7 wins out of 8 if the referee would have done their job. Who have got legs in the middle of the park with Ferguson, McGeoch and McCrory. And that's a young midfield, well, apart from McGeoch, but if it's Ferguson and McCrory, that's a young midfield.
And they're 3 points behind
Celtic. So I can't see Scott Brown being dropped for today's game.
If it was, I think, at home, or if it was against what I would call lesser opposition, I think that would be a decision that Lenny would need to make. Again, I will ask you your team lines in a few seconds, but I'm going to have a look at some of the comments coming in, Kevin, on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. And some of the comments are tremendous that come through, Kevin, and obviously we're monitoring this as best as we possibly can on a kind of live basis to root out any issues from elsewhere. But Liam McLaughlin, welcome to the show, Liam. You're watching on YouTube. Massive game today. 3 points is a must. Hopeful of a good performance to come on the Celts. Now, leading up to the AC Milan game, after a series of bad performances, Kevin, it's got to be said, which culminated in a defeat in the Glasgow Derby, we wanted a good performance to set us up for today. I mean, Thursday night, any result would have been tremendous. If you got the 2-2, which, by the way, I think we weren't far away from getting and achieving, then excellent. But it was all about the performance moving into today's game, because 3 points is an absolute must. And Magnet 67, good morning, fellow Tims. What better way to start game day than with PJD and friends? Hail, hail, you are a friend, Kevin, that's for sure. And it's just the two of us that's going into the match day today. Normally, we do have a couple of pundits, but from time to time, I think it's good just to get the old, the original lineup back in place, Kevin. And Stephen Forbes, let's hope we're not discussing Lennon's future after today. And are talking about a convincing performance and a confidence boost ahead of the trip to Lille, a hard fought but deserved 2-1 for Celtic. Now, that's interesting, because I have got plans, depending on how the game goes today, for the post-match, and part of the plans will be that very discussion that Stephen has just intimated, if it's necessary, because it is a discussion we're going to have, isn't it?
I still think that we may be having this discussion even if we do win. I still think this discussion's got long to rumble, because I can see a fracture in the support.
Oh, massively.
And if we can see it sitting here, then the people in charge can see it. And the people in charge have got more information than us, and then some of the stuff that we've just seen that could well be made up. And
the people in charge have already discussed it, I'm sure.
If there is something to be discussed.
Which I think there is. There is, isn't there? I mean, you look at the Duffy situation. We're not here. We're not in the game, Kevin, of getting all this information and trying to release it to make us out to look like we're in the know. That Duffy comment about his dental issues, that was sent to us. I got that via WhatsApp. So this information is spreading like wildfire. I don't know who the mole is. I don't know who the source is. But before you know it, everybody's getting this information. So when Neil Lennon comes out yesterday and confirms it, you think, well, there's another bit of information that's been released, days before it's actually been confirmed. So that's a massive issue, and that's something that the board will have discussed, 100%.
Definitely, but you have to, whoever's leaking this, we need to work out what their end game is.
Why are they doing it?
What good does it do them to release this information?
Deliberate agitation.
And that's what I find difficult to actually compute. That's what I find difficult to get a handle on, because anybody that I think about, or any area of the club that I think about, would benefit. I can't find an area of the club that would benefit leaking this information.
But remember, you think back, Kevin, and I was on my way up to Malone's for one of the games at the time, and you get the message, and it's all about the China discussion, Brendan Rodgers, and then obviously Desmond and Peter Lawwell and that meeting and all that kind of stuff, and you're reading that thinking, well, seems a bit absurd. Turned out to be true. That was months and months before it was confirmed as true. So that these leaks have been at Celtic Park for a long time.
I think that Rodgers one was very clear who that benefited when it came out.
Yeah.
So you could probably quite confidently point an elbow and know where that came from, because who did it benefit? Way the team leaks and that WhatsApp text that everybody seems to have had, I'm sitting there going, who does that benefit?
It can only benefit someone who is deliberately undermining Neil Lennon, because it doesn't come back well on Lenny when there's players leaking information, for example. There's loads of other stuff which I'm not going to mention that was in that text regarding Duffy, because I can't confirm if it's true, and I'm not going to agitate for the sake of it, Kevin, but you've probably got the same message. So there's a lot of quite concerning stuff in that message.
There is,
and if it's all true...
But there seemed to be a wee bit of Neil Lennon bingo in there. Mentioned certain things that were mentioned when he was at Hibs, which have been mentioned all over his career. It always seems to be when we hit a wee spell, like when Neil hits a wee spell.
He's on a short leash with the Celtic support, Kevin. I've said that.
Anytime Neil has had a spell like this in management, these rumours always come to the fore. And that's another thing that when we're talking about social media earlier on, the players are reading what the supporters are saying about the manager.
Yeah.
So if the players have got any doubts whatsoever, they might be going, it doesn't really matter if I try a leg here because the supporters didn't like him and they might not be here for long.
It's a matter of time in a lot of their minds. Now that's concerning in itself if there's a player or group of players who have that mindset, because you won't, obviously, you spoke the other night there about the Holy Trinity. At this moment in time, we just need to make sure that the manager and the players are together.
Aye.
Because that's a big concern. There's always going to be fractions in the support.
I mean look, today, a lot of folk will say, we want the team to give us a performance. I want the team to give a performance for themselves. They need to look themselves in the mirror. They don't need to look me in the mirror. They need to look themselves in the mirror and give a performance for them. And no for us. Because a performance for us doesn't really matter. It's a performance for them, being professional sportsmen, that they need to give. Aye, they can't forget about us, but we've got to a point now where they need to do it for themselves.
And the gaffer.
Or football players, football players are only can get the gaffer the sack if they want to. And we've seen that happen on occasions where players weren't playing for one manager in the following week. They're world beaters again, and I hope that's not going to happen here. But the players and the coaching staff, I'm going to bring the coaching staff into this, need to get a performance out there today for themselves.
Now, Kevin, you've mentioned something there that's 100% right, in that we've got a squad of players here, we've got a team of players, even with all the injuries, even with the illnesses, that's going to result in us missing maybe 6 or 7 first-team players today, that should a manager come in or whatever, you'll see a complete change if this is the issue. If it's an issue with a group of players who aren't playing for the gaffer, because the players are there, the talent is there, and that would be the saddest thing of all if that is the case. Now, Ken Walsh, a good friend of a Celtic State of Mind, good morning to the wig and his wee boy. This is going to continue, isn't it? Now, Joe Porter, who By the way, Ken, great to hear from you, and hopefully Ken, it won't be too long before we can get a wee catch up in Malone's at some point when you're over from Ireland. Joe Porter, who comments regularly via YouTube, my money is on 3-2 Celtic. Before I ask you for your prediction, Kevin, I'm going to ask you for your team, and obviously a big part of that is how we're going to shape up.
Okay, so I thought about this. Aberdeen have been playing a 3-4-1-2 since the start of the season, and even when they've lost McKenna, they've still kept with the three at the back. So I'm not tactical at all, and thinking about the other night and thinking how we maybe need a strong backbone of guys that we feel like should be leading the team. I've went Barkas in goals, Frimpong at right back, Duffy, Ayer and Laxalt. A midfield three, a Cham, Brown and McGregor. And up front, a front three of Christie, Ayeti and Moy. So I'm going a 4-3-3 because Aberdeen are playing three at the back, and you can put three guys on their back three. And also, I don't know if Johnny Hayes is going to make it for Aberdeen either. So he gives them that sort of... Hayes and Hodges are like these two sort of wing backs.
Right.
So I don't know if Johnny Hayes is there. And Johnny Hayes will only like... If it's not Johnny Hayes, then Christie could have a bit of... Christie and Moy could have a bit of joy down the wings.
Are you looking at a 4-3-3?
A 4-3-3.
Interesting. Because that's becoming quite a trendy formation all of a sudden. I wonder if 4-4-2 will ever come back.
It's probably the first time I've ever been trendy in my life.
Well, that's another discussion. But I'm interested in so many people you've chosen there. First and foremost, I thought Laxalt was, over the last two games, one of our best performers. So he's definitely going to start. Definitely. The question would be where? You've got him at left back. He was one of the first name on the team sheet. I don't think him and McGregor were the first two names on the team sheet. I thought him and McGregor worked well. They did.
Down that left-hand side. And when I'm looking at the team, Laxalt, McGregor and Moy all down that left-hand side, all intelligent football players, and the energy that Laxalt brings down there. Because it's quite a narrow team. If you play a 4-3-3, you're going to get... The word needs to come for your fullbacks. So that's what I believe. You'll see McGregor and Moy helping out Laxalt on the left-hand side. So we had three, what I would call effective substitutions on Thursday night in Christie, Elyounoussi and Rogic. Of the three, Christie was absolutely tremendous. When you look at the amount of involvement he had in creative plays through Christie, there were 7 that I counted, and obviously set up the goal. He is an absolute certainty to start today, because everything that we do creatively throughout this season has come through Ryan Christie. Has Elyounoussi done enough to start? I mean, he scored, obviously, but I'm also thinking of the Rangers' performance as well. I'm thinking of the 2 games, and Elyounoussi performance against Rangers was poor. He's come on, he scored another important European goal. It could have been the start of a monumental fight back, but enough to start. I think so. I think we actually need more attacking options, and I think you saw it the other night when we brought on that extra attacking player and Christie, when we took off Walsh and brought Christie on for him. You saw the change in the dynamic of the team. One of my friends texted me, Stuart, and he had watched the game again, and he says when we went to a back 4 and brought on Christie, you could see the team looking more comfortable. Actually, with the formation, the setup, and the fact they started going forward, and that was, and again, I'm not going to go too tactically in it. I think that was because we added the energy of Christie and another attacking option there. It was easier for them to play from muscle memory with a back 4 and that sort of midfield setup, rather than trying to. We all loved the 3-5-2 last year, and it now seems to be that every Celtic fan is now throwing it in the bin, saying it's rubbish, we can't play it, we won't use it again, which is, it just shows you that you can't be a manager on Twitter. Well, another player I'm going to ask you about is Ncham, who, again, Thursday night, that was the Ncham that you and I have waxed lyrical about many times, Kevin. It often does happen in Europe. Technically tremendous footballer, don't see it enough. What's his role for you today? I think when you've got Cham and Christie on the right hand side, for me, Christie can be in Cham's legs and allow Cham to do what he's good at, which is basically dictate the play, break things down, actually create things. Also as well, with that midfield three, I think we noticed when Cham dropped back into Brown's position the other night, that is his best position, the sort of libero, like regista position, rather than in the hole. I don't think he's good further up the park. I think he needs to drop back a bit. But the problem that you've got when he drops back to the Brown role is, has he got the defensive nonce to actually do it? Has he got that attitude to actually be the... Because if you're playing that role, mind you, Pirlo never done it. But he just read the game. I'm no comparing Cham to Pirlo.
I wish he had just come and played a year in the hoops. Pirlo, he would have looked great in the green and white hoops. But I'm going to tell you my team, Kevin, and again, it's I'm not tearing everything up and throwing the baby out with the bathwater here, but there are a few changes that I would make, and one of the changes would be the shape. Three at the back's great if it's working. It simply isn't working at the moment, so we change it. If you ask me, we change it. So I'm going for 4 at the back with Barkas in goals. Barkas has come in for a lot of criticism. It's come and gone this season, but certainly in the last couple of games he's been criticised again, Kevin. And, we've got to look back on the fact that of all the people we went to sign this transfer window just passed, and we put out a couple of podcasts asking about how satisfied fans were with the transfer window. At the time, most people were. The only point that was being made was we wanted Foster and we got Barkas. But, it's not as if Barkas was just a last-minute addition. He's someone that had been scouted, possibly since the encounters with Athens a few years back. £4.5 million, different type of goalkeeper than Foster was. Nowhere near, so far, we've not seen it, nowhere near the shot stopper that Foster was. But there's other aspects of his game that he does differently and perhaps better in terms of the quick feet of getting the ball and playing it almost as a sweeper when we've got the space to do that. And I know that that's something in modern football that is almost necessary, for the goalie to be able to distribute the ball. So, Barkas is in goals for me. Frimpong is an important player today because he's not going to be right up in the offensive area of the park to start off with. I've already aired my concerns about his defensive qualities, Kevin, so it's going to be very important that Ayer in the centre of defence is going to cover him when he's rampaging down the right hand side, which I will be expecting from Frimpong. He's playing right back, but I want him to play as an overlapping right back, not as a wing back, because I think there's two different positions. You're a right back first and foremost and you're overlapping. If you're a wing back, then you're offensive first and foremost and you're tracking back. So Frimpong on the right hand side of the defence, but with loads of support required, I would guess, from Ayer. Ayer starting alongside Duffy, because I wouldn't start a game today without Duffy and Ayer playing together. Welsh, has he done all that bad? Probably not. He probably hasn't. We changed him because we were changing the formation on Thursday night. He came off against Rangers having, I thought, had a decent enough performance on an individual level. So I wouldn't play him because we need to go with Duffy and Ayer. And by the way, if Julien was fit, it would be Ayer and Julien today for me. And left back, I'm bringing Taylor back because I just think we have leaked goals. We've been hemorrhaging really, really simple goals, Kevin. Weak, cheap goals, and we need to try and tighten that up. But again, what I'm looking for from Taylor is a wee bit of link-up play with Laxalt, who'll be playing in front of him. I think we've got a player in Laxalt who, once we click as a team, he will shine. What he showed against Rangers, and particularly against AC Milan, is a strength, a willingness to get stuck in when necessary. But, he's a strong runner. You've seen a lot of the times when he's running with that ball, you think he's just about to lose it, but he gets through it. And, that's a part in his play that you've seen for Uruguay at the top level. So, Salt's going to be important for us today. It's taken a lot of the onus off Taylor, who just needs to defend today for me. Don't worry too much about the overlap. We're looking for the overlap from Frimpong. Brown and McGregor, thought long and hard about Brown, but he is, despite the fact that we did perform better when he came off on Thursday night. This is a different game, Kevin. You've said that already. We're going into battle today at Pittodrie, and we need Brown for battles like that. McGregor, what I liked about him on Thursday night was his link-up play with Laxalt. You've mentioned Cham and Frimpong on the right, which was great. But I think McGregor and Laxalt done similar over on the left. And I am looking for Ncham to do exactly the same with Frimpong today. And when Frimpong's rampaging forward, then Ncham just sits back that wee bit. Christie, first name in the team sheet for me, Kevin. And it's not a free roll, but he is actually gliding into the forward position, but also coming back. The work rate's unbelievable from Christie, particularly when he loses the ball himself to get back and win the ball back and get goal side of it. That leaves me with just the one forward player, although Christie will be playing off of him. So the one striker. And we've got 3 options up front, Kevin. We've got Lee Griffiths, who started ineffectively, I've got to say, on Thursday night. We've got Ajeti and we've got Klimala. So who do you pick? And of those 3, going over the last couple of games, I'm going to go for Ajeti. I'm going to pick Ajeti up front. So there's players like Rogic, who was very impressive on Thursday night, I thought, when he came on. Rolling back the years, we're talking about him like he's Roy Race at 34. He's only 28, you know. El Yunusi, yeah, we actually needed that from him on Thursday night, because I thought he was really poor against Rangers, but he's not done enough for me to start today. But he's a great option on the bench, and we're going to have other really good options on the bench in the shape of Turnbull, for example, who I thought about in place of Brown. I did think about him, different types of players, and I know that, but I would definitely be thinking about how to fit Turnbull into this side. He doesn't make it for me today, but that's how I'm going to set up. And I'm going to ask you again, before I go back to some of the comments that are coming in on the social media channels, for a prediction for today's game, Kev.
What you mentioned about Griffiths and Rogic, yes, Big Tam had a wee cameo role, which was fantastic.
He's second, because he done well against St Johnstone as well, didn't he?
But I've got a worry about his fitness. I've always had a worry about his fitness, right enough. He only seems to be can last 60 minutes. And Griffiths, I think, for all his energy in the first 20 odd minutes against AC Milan the other night, he fell completely out of the game, and it was actually no surprise to see him disappearing at half time. My prediction,
you might want to hold that once I check to see if the team lines have been confirmed, because there's quite a lot of people talking about the team, and I can confirm that it's nothing like what we've just said. So Bain starts, Barkas is out. We've got Duffy, Ajeti, Christie, Rogic, Ncham, El Yunusi, Frimpong, Ayer, McGregor and Laxalt. So Brown is out also. Now, let's just digest that team line for a second. I wasn't planning to speak about the team until the actual pre-match, but it's came out slightly earlier on Celtic's, probably before it comes out on the leak. It's came out on Celtic's Twitter page. So how are we going to line up looking at that team line then, Kevin? No Scott Brown, no Barkas even on the bench. Hazard is the substitute goalkeeper. Are we going to read into that as he picked up an injury? What is the story there? Barkas completely out of the squad, and Bain comes in for, I think it'll be his second start of the season, because he started against Hamilton, didn't he? What's your thoughts on this then? A couple of shocks in there. Definitely put on the spot there. Now, what I would actually say... That's the good thing about doing a live show. We can react instantly, Kevin.
I would possibly say Barkas must be injured. The fact that he's not on the bench.
Yeah, because if you're dropped, you still keep him in there, wouldn't you?
Still keep him on the bench. So I'm just trying to... I ken you're doing the smart bit and trying to write it down. I'm really surprised that Brown's not there. Callum McGregor's the captain, obviously. So have we went a 4-2-3-1 maybe? I would... Well,
let's try and make this a wee bit easier. Who's playing in Brown's role? Who's playing in Brown's role for you?
Ncham.
Right. And if Ncham's playing there, and you've got El Yunusi, Christie and Rogic all playing, where's Rogic playing?
It's a 4-2-3-1.
4-2-3-1.
It's a 4-2-3-1.
Right.
So you've got Ncham and McGregor as a two. You've got the three as El Yunusi, Christie and Rogic, with Ajeti up front, with Frimpong right back, Laxalt left back, Duffing Ayer. That's why it's a 4-2-3-1. He's went back to the old tried and tested. I'm just having a look at on the bench as well. Sorrow's there, Turnbull's there, Ralston's there, Welsh.
Interesting team line, as always, from Neil Lennon. I mean, we've been talking all week about whether or not Scott Brown could be dropped against Aberdeen at Pittodrie. Jim Orr said no, that couldn't happen, and he gave us a really good balanced reasoning behind it. I tended to agree with him, even though, I was conceding the fact that when Brown came off against Milan, Kevin, Celtic looked like a far better side. And Rogic thrown in, El Yunusi thrown in. It's very interesting. Of all of them, the additions, I think, as you say, Bain, that must be due to injury because Barkas has dropped entirely out of the squad. Does it worry you at all that team, almost sporadic in its nature, isn't it? I mean, there's a lot of changes. Does it worry you in any way when we make 4 or 5 changes like that?
We seem to be a rabble of team individuals, but no set up as a team.
Your wee mate the other night, James, made his European debut on a Celtic State of Mind, and at one point there was a great passage of play, and he says, "Oh, it's Lenny ball," when we all laughed because we thought, "Wow, that's a good term." But this is like, another version of Lenny ball where he's picking balls out of a hat.
Aye, we seem to be like sort of stuck together by sellotape there, and it's really quite. I wouldn't have picked that team. As I say, I had Brown in my team. I mean, having a look at it, I got the back four right, 2 in the midfield. The only one different. Well, obviously Barkas is different.
Rogic and Bain are the 3 that I didn't expect in there. But again,
it's only Rogic and Bain are the difference for my team. Mm-hmm. So I maybe shouldn't be too surprised. I think it's just seen Scott Bain there's maybe just through my mind. Look, that is a helly talented team.
Of course it is.
Whether they're going to work as a team and no hopscotch of talented individuals is another story. Whether they're going to be allowed to play football today is another thing. So, look, last week's behind us, This is another week, another game, another chance to make amends. As I've already said, the players have got to do it for themselves. They've got to go out there and give a performance for themselves. My own personal thoughts is, for the first time in a number of seasons, this is no your league to lose. This is your league to actually, we have to go and attack this league now. We have to actually go out and win this league. And I'm quite comfortable with that because you've got to embrace different situations than what you've been used to. It's football; these things happen. You've got to breathe it in. You've got to love it. You've got to. We're going to need to attack this league. Probably for the first time in a wee while, we're going to need to win this league. And no, it's no for us to give up now. It's no for us to lose. I ken a lot of folks say that, this is Celtics to lose. Well, I don't think it is anymore. I think this is now Celtics to win. And I'm quite comfortable with that.
All right. Well, it's a bold team. It's a bold set of changes that Neil Lennon has made. We're going to be digesting it over the next 45 minutes, Kevin, because we'll be back for the actual pre-match at 30:30, so it's only 35 minutes in actual fact. Throwing a wee curved ball there, so thanks everybody who let us know that the team lines were out. We've reacted instantly. Kevin was lost for words for a wee minute or two, but interesting team line, very attacking team line, Kevin, and the proof is, as they say in the pudding, we could be having a post-match where we are lauding the brilliance of that selection, or it could be something completely different. We will be back at 11:30 for the half-hour run-up to the game, by which time everybody will have digested the team line and we might be able to figure out how we're actually going to line up. So thanks everybody who has been involved in this morning's match preview. But all that's left for me to say is, Kevin Graham, thank you for joining me once again on A Celtic State of Mind.
Thank you very much, lads.